Welcome back to another day here on the Winter's Lorcana channel. Today we are playing a deck built by ChatGPT, and it actually looks pretty good. And on top of that, there is a whole discussion group on Lore20 working on a similar list. They have been for quite some time, so I'm incredibly surprised that ChatGPT actually came up with this. In case you're not familiar, my good friend Max Illuminary, linked in the description down below, and also hopefully on screen right next to me at the same time, talked to ChatGPT and got it to assume the role of being the best Lorcana player and coaching us on how to build the most powerful deck. And it's brilliant. You guys should definitely go check it out. It was a fun watch. The process of watching ChatGPT turn its gears to figure out a deck was really entertaining and fun to watch. And I highly recommend it if you're ready for a good laugh. It was fantastic. Now, as for the deck, this is a Damage Matters deck. We are playing characters Mulan, Beast, and Mother Gothu, who enter with damage, and we are playing characters Belle, Untrained Mystic, Belle, Accomplished Mystic, and Maleficent, Mistress of all evil, to move that damage to our opponent's characters. That's it. That's the deck. It's fun. It's simple. There's some synergy pieces. Rose Lantern down here. Again, the bottom always gets cut off, but exert it, pay 2, move 1 damage, counter from chosen character to chosen opposing character. And the card Soldier Spear here reads, your damaged characters get +1 strength. This is a red card. This is a purple card. I know, can't see them, but it is a blast to play. And thank you to SouthPaw for sitting down with me and playing these games. Now let's jump in and see if we can't win a few. All right, jumping right on into game number 1 here with SouthPaw. I hope you guys like this video's setup for the game. You'll see on the left-hand side there, I have lore totals, and as we gain lore, our icons will appear. Now, I asked my friends here to bring B tier decks, not S tier, not A tier, B tier. I did not feel that our deck was that powerful, so I wanted to start it off against something that I thought would be a fair fight. So today SouthPaw is playing an Emerald Steel Piratey Dwarfy deck. So that's what we're going against. And you know, sometimes when I don't feel the most confident in my deck, I like to play against something I feel is right on par with it. It helps me to learn my deck in an environment where the deck has a chance to thrive. But also sometimes you're pleasantly surprised and it turns out that the deck you play is very potent. Now, we'll see if we happen to be hyper potent today. We're going to go in for a pretty classic move here. Play the broom, bounce the broom with a snake, especially with a Calhoun on board. I think I'm more than happy to just trade a snake for a Calhoun, especially if I can be the one to do the attacking here. That way the Calhoun doesn't get the trigger. So I'm actually hoping for a quest, but we will see. And also, you can see my icon did appear when I quested with the brooms. Look at that. Isn't that pretty cool? You guys will have to let me know what you think about that. I added those little stripes there because I originally didn't have the stripes next to the numbers, and it was actually kind of hard to tell, especially when SouthPaw's icon comes up, because it was getting a little difficult to tell which number we were actually on. So hopefully that works out great. Now we see Donald Duck coming down, and Donald Duck, oh boy, just needs a captain character, and that thing quests for 3, which is pretty nutso. And here we go, getting a Beast down. Beast, I'm excited for. Comes in with 4 damage. It's effectively a 3-cost 2/2, which is not the greatest thing. It does quest for 2, which is really fantastic. And in our deck, 4 damage is a lot of damage to get to just move around. And that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to move it around. And I think it's in this moment that we kind of tip our hand a little bit to SouthPaw, because he doesn't really hesitate to just fire some cannons right at the Beast. I don't know if in this moment it was like a, aha, I think I care about you having damage, or if it was just a, I don't want you questing for 2 kind of situation. Obviously, he can see we're an Amethyst, and there are things like Bell. Even though I am a few turns out from Bell, there are things like Bell that can move damage, which are pretty standard in the red-purple decks. So I could see a little bit of fear making sense and not necessarily tipping our hand. Now, I did learn playing this deck, one of the trickiest things with it, apart from the fact that ChatGPT made it and who knows if it's actually good or not, is knowing when to play your characters with the damage. Because it does become a little apparent here in a turn or two to SouthPaw that damage really is important for us. And so his ability, especially in Steel, to just target and remove our damage characters is massive. Now, we played the Card Soldier Spear, so our damage characters gain an additional strength, and that right there is a big hint that we do care about damage on our characters. Now, the downside going into Steel with damage characters is Steel's removal is largely damage based, so a little bit of an upside, a little bit of a downside. Our damage characters are much easier and more reliably removed by their removal, but our other characters that don't enter with damage are much more likely to gain damage. So a little bit of a double-edged sword there for him. And the Hidden Cove coming down is problematic. SouthPaw does make a mistake here. Or at least I think he made a mistake. And he challenges in at the Cove. I believe he was thinking he would be at 3 willpower, and with the resist, our snake couldn't defeat him. That's where the Card Soldier Spear got him. Totally tricked him. Card Soldier Spear let the snake get through for the right amount of damage, which was fantastic. And then he moved the captain. That's what we did not want to see, because every time that captain gets challenged, it allows him to draw a card. Now, this was the tricky bit. I want to get rid of the captain here, but I also don't want to lose my characters. We do make a mistake. He forgot about my Card Soldier Spear, and I forgot about the Hidden Cove. So I'm just going to go straight in for the Bell to move some damage, and then challenge with the Mulan. And here I'm thinking, crap on a cracker, I just moved the damage, I lost the extra strength I was thinking about with the Card Soldier Spear. Well, I still want to get rid of Captain, so let's finish it off with the Magic Broom. Fantastic. And then you'll notice here in a moment, I put 1 damage on both characters, and then he reminds me, no, hold on, Hidden Cove, both your characters have 2 damage. I'm like, oh yeah, good catch, yeah, 2 damage on each. And he's like, and your broom's dead. I'm like, oh yeah, and the broom's dead. Complete whiff on my part, because I was so concentrated on getting the 3 damage with a damage Mulan, and then moving the 2 damage, but you had to move the damage first or Mulan would have been banished. And then I lost the strength, and I was, yeah. Some of these lines are kind of tricky to think through, because you're moving the damage, it's changing numbers. Hidden Cove honestly didn't help a ton there for helping me calculate numbers. Yeah, really interesting. A lot to think about when it comes to moving around the damage. It's an extra layer in this game that you don't normally have to deal with. And I'll tell you what, while it might be a strong projection of what you're trying to do when you play those damaged characters, it's also, considering how difficult it was for myself and realizing how difficult it was for SouthPaw to really calculate how this damage is going to affect the game state, I could see taking this deck against somebody who's unfamiliar with it, say to a set champs or something, and catching them completely off guard. Now, the only thing is, this is a deck you have to practice, because I played a quick game with it on table.net, ink.net, whatever it is, the AI platform. It's saved on my computer. I never have to type in the URL. My apologies. And yeah, it was fine there, but it wasn't until I actually was playing against a real opponent that all of a sudden, like, thinking about the numbers and what I should be doing with them where it really became apparent to me that this deck requires practice. And on top of that, who knows if this list, well, who knows? I probably know. This list is not the best version of it, I'm sure. Usually the first iteration is not the best iteration, but lots of practice, and the deck still has to be changed, which requires even more practice. Now, he did play Pete. We do have actions in the deck. Not a lot, though. I think it's primarily just the Teeth and Ambitions and Friends on the other side. So we don't actually care so much that Pete come down. We'd rather play our characters anyway. Now he has this Dawn Carnage. A 4/4 evasive at quest for 2, and I'm thinking to myself, how the heck do I get rid of that? My deck actually is not really loaded up with evasives. So how do I deal with that? I don't know. It's going to be a tricky one. Especially when you start to run out of damage characters, then all of a sudden you don't have damage to move around. Like, I have Maleficent in hand, I have a Maleficent in play, both of which can move damage counters, but I don't have any damage. So I'm kind of committed to a race here in this moment. Let's get rid of the Pete. That puts some damage on. Now I can quest with the Maleficent. That allows me to move 2 damage counters. So I'm getting the quest in. I'm putting 2 damage counters on Dawn. I got rid of a Pete. Actually, I'm not feeling too bad. Being able to challenge Pete, that's a pretty solid way to get damage on our own characters. The only issue you gotta watch out for, of course, is there's so many characters with 3 strength or more, even in the early turns of this game anymore, that you have to have 4 willpower for that to really work out for you, in most cases. Now, another unexpected upside, Belle technically has 5 strength now because of the card Soldier Spear and the fact that she's still holding on to 1 damage. So, that's pretty neat. It's not incredibly relevant in this moment, but it's pretty neat. And then for SouthPaw here, he's running low on cards in hand. So he's kind of playing this back and forth game of, do I control the board or do I quest? And in this instance, he is going to try to control the board. You know, if I don't have any damage characters down, those Maleficents are only drawing cards, which, you know, is a bad thing for him, but it's not the end of the world. He at least gets to ideally hold on to some of his characters. There I am top decking another Belle. It's not what I want to see. So I'm going to quest here to draw another card. I'm hoping to find something with damage. And I believe I pull a... Oh, I got a Genie, and then I pull a Mulan. And Mulan's exactly what I want to see, because I can slam this down, it gets 2 damage counters, and then I quest with Maleficent. Now questing with the Maleficent, I get to now move the damage counters and take out the Go-Go. Now I know the damage thing was really tripping SouthPaw up because he kept trying to preemptively move damage counters to where he thought I would put them. Like for instance, he tried to put the damage on Donald there. And no, obviously the best thing to do is get rid of that evasive character. It's a 2/2. It gets banished right away. Donald survives. I don't want him to have a surviving character. I do get punished for it here though. He does get the Daisy Duck, a captain, so the Donald gets to quest for 2. The Donald would have always gotten to quest for 3. Donald would have always gotten to quest for 3 because 2 damage would not have banished it. Then I didn't have another way to move damage. But now I got a pretty solid board, and I just top decked a Madame M. Fox, which means I can bounce that Mulan. I do make a mistake here. I even say it to SouthPaw in the moment. Oh, screw that up. I should have quested first. So, getting ahead of myself, moving a little too fast, missing some important things. But Fox gets to take out Donald. That puts damage on the Fox. I now have a Mulan who has 2 more damage on it. So now all of a sudden I have 4 damage I can move. And with 2 draw triggers from these Maleficents, and each one triggering for each damage, I get to move all the damage counters to Daisy. They don't trigger for each damage, they trigger for each card draw. But that allows me to draw 2 cards, gain 4 lore, put 4 damage on Daisy, and then just like that, his board is cleared. I get a quest out, moving up to 13. And then, just to play it safe, I am going to ink here, and I am going to play another Fox and return Mulan back to my hand. I don't want to see it getting banished. And, you know, having damage ready to go in your hand, that's pretty solid. So the snakes and the foxes all of a sudden now have a new kind of value in the deck that wasn't initially a part of the game plan, right? Normally your snakes and foxes, they just want to come down early and be a nuisance and keep the board clear. But in this particular deck, they have another function all of a sudden. All right, we're going to jump into game 3 here. So we did play a best of 3. SouthPaw did win game 2. But we're going to jump into game 3 here because I just thought that the game was a more entertaining thing. Plus also time reasons. I like to, unless the games go extraordinarily long, I like to take the lengthier game and show that off for you guys. And in this case, it was game 3 was our lengthiest game. So more footage for you guys. That's why we're skipping game 2. But we're starting off here with Mother Gothel. This also highlights another thing. When you're playing the best of 3, or even in best of 2, but when you're playing the best of 3, it does become a lot more obvious what your game plan kind of is. Getting these damage characters down and doing damage to their characters. So Fire the Cannon's popping off here instead of him playing something else. Like, that's much more relevant, right? Normally somebody might just quest in that position and happily trade happy for the Mother Gothel there. Let them swing in. Like, I dare you to challenge. And if you quest, then I'll challenge you. That's normally what would happen in that situation. But that was actually worth a Fire the Cannons, and rightfully so, because Bell coming down here would have just meant one of the happies just getting banished. And unfortunately for SouthPaw, 3 happies in the opening hand. I didn't catch to see if he drew one or not, but 3 of them is pretty brutal. And then here, I am faced with a tough situation. I am thinking, man, he's going really wide. I want to keep my damage as best I can. I'm okay if he wants to trade Donald for a fox here. So I'm just trying my very, very best to trade the board. I also, if I recall correctly, I think I'm also having an ink problem in my hand. I don't recall 100%. I think the cards I really want to keep are the inkable ones in this particular instance. Now he just gets to move the Donald Duck to the mine, finishing off the fox. So no trade there. It goes really quick. He does move it, does do the damage, and then he quests with Donald. It does kind of look like it was a challenge, but it was not a challenge. Now we're playing Genie. It's a solid body on board, plus we get the card draw. I'm just trying to find things that I can ink that I am comfortable getting rid of. Mother Gothel is a little unfortunate. I am thinking here, let's try to be as ink efficient as possible. Obviously making the mistake that he can just play a character and move them to the mine. Completely over my head. I missed it entirely. But that's exactly what's going to happen here. He's going to play a character and move it to the mine. And we're just going to lose the turn of bogs. Sometimes, like I said, sometimes you just play really quickly. And playing really quickly is an easy way to make mistakes. And that's exactly what happens here. I definitely was not thinking about it, and we walk into this. Now, my game plan here, what I was thinking is, yeah, be really efficient with the ink, get the Chernobog's down, and next turn I just straight up trade it for a card draw, because while I was able to ink that turn, I wanted to draw multiple cards, find more of my damaged characters, find more of my damage mover characters, or even just find other ink. We do top deck another Chernobog's, so it's not like we're going to miss the ink, which is fantastic. The other issue I see, it does appear we have Maleficent in hand. I can't quite tell what that last card is, but we are thinking about Lawrence. We are thinking about Donald. How do I deal with the mine? My characters aren't particularly strong. Do I just draw cards here? Am I questing? And we're going to put damage on the Donald. We're just going to set up for Maleficent to start doing things. Now the idea here is I have damage on Genie, so Maleficent, I'm going to be able to draw 2 cards next turn. The normal card draw and Maleficent could draw a card. So I could move both damage from Genie. What I'm thinking is I put the last damage on Donald, get rid of him, and then move the second damage to Lawrence, which will then get rid of his strength. And then all of a sudden both my characters can just finish off Lawrence. That's kind of what I'm thinking. But then of course I can't draw the additional card if Maleficent's attacking. Sometimes you're thinking too fast, and that's exactly what's going on here. I will say this game was recorded at the one of our local card shops, and it's always loud in there. There's always lots of people playing Magic the Gathering. So I'm hearing people shouting and talking about these weird combos going on in the background. So sometimes it can be a little challenging to focus in on what's going on. For me, I find it's not so distracting when the chatter I hear in the background is also Lorcana, because it's not taking my brain out of it. But when I hear something about, like a Niv Mizzet in the background, I'm like, oh yeah, what does that guy do? It's a totally different game. How does attacking work in that game? I get distracted. And that's exactly what happens when I play this environment. There's this back room that we have that I like, that I prefer to play in, but the last few times we went in there, it's been filled with people. Which is, it's a good problem to have, honestly, for the local card shop. But we'll make the best of it here. I am going to move the damage around, put the damage on the Lawrence here. Drew the extra card with Rabbit, so now I could attack and take out the Lawrence if I so chose. So that is back on the table thanks to this Rabbit. I'm looking at my opponent's lore total. They're climbing really quickly. So I'm thinking to myself, I need to establish total control, and I need to start questing. Now the question is, can I do both? That's what I gotta stop him from questing, and I gotta start questing. Here we go. I'm finally on the board. Unfortunately, I have no damage to move. I should have challenged Lawrence, I think. Just get rid of him. Keep the character off the board. There's no way for me to have acquired any damage. Now, I say I should have challenged, and I'm sitting here and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, no, I did that right. I drew my cards first. Because I could have potentially drawn like a Teeth and Ambitions. And then Genie could have sung that. So leaving my options open for Genie to potentially sing things, I think was actually the correct move here. So see, sometimes I make the right moves. There was no way for me to get damage on Genie except through Teeth. And then by then I'd already drawn all my cards anyway, so it's not like I could have finished off Lawrence. But that's what I was looking for. I was looking for a way to finish it off. I could have, like I said, just straight up challenged into Lawrence. Which maybe I should have done since I got the Merlin Rabbit. One of those things where you think of the game plan, and then you realize you can't do it. And then you draw the card that lets you do it, but by then you've already kind of given up on the idea because you're resigned to not being able to do it. Yeah, this deck can be tricky when you're thinking about the damage moving around and how do you get the damage, and does it matter if you get the damage here or if you move it there? It's all just a little tricky, honestly. It's a really fun deck to play, but it definitely requires a lot more practice than sitting down for the first night in a crowded card shop and trying to master it on the spot. Having said that, though, it's a fun deck. I think right now B tier might be accurate for it. It's definitely not A tier, and certainly not an S tier deck. But I think there is potential for this deck to be an A tier deck. I don't know if there's potential for it to be an S tier. We're definitely missing some really key cards. If we had something that said, I don't know, like maybe something that said you gain a lore every time you move one damage counter, maybe that could do it. Or maybe we had something a little more consistent. Like Maleficent's really good at moving damage, but she's a weak body and she's expensive. So if we had something a little cheaper and a little bit more reliable than Maleficent, That could also be really, really important. Or what would be really cool is if we had something that said every time you move 1 damage, double the amount of damage counters. Something like that. So you move 1 and it doubles to 2. What's cool about moving damage counters is resist has no effect on it. So if they have to resist 1 and you move 1 damage counter, they still get the 1 damage counter because you're not dealing damage, you are moving a damage counter. So yeah, something that would double damage counters. Now that would be brutal. That would be really, really cool. Or like a Tinkerbell style effect where you move 1 damage counter and it goes to all characters on your opponent's side of the board or something like that. Or make it be a chosen thing. I'm trying to think of something that could work around Ward, because that's the other issue with this deck. The second you play against Ward, that's a no bueno situation, because you can't actually move any of your damage counters at that point. Then that's just really bad. Now we're doing solid here. We're going very wide. He played a Pete. Again, we've talked about Pete. I did happen to top deck the Teeth and Ambitions, and yeah, that was obnoxious to top deck that. There is going to actually be a play mistake here, though. Like I said, I just drew the Teeth and Ambitions, but because I'm taking my time to think about what I'm supposed to be doing, I forget about Pete, and I'm actually going to sing the Teeth and Ambitions here. And yes, it was a late night. SouthPaw and I were both pretty tired, so he also did not catch that Teeth and Ambitions was not meant to be played here. We are going to narrate the rest of this game based on what I believe should have happened. So this is going to be a little speculation here, but I think I got this down. I think I know exactly what's going on, and there's going to be a key moment here. Keep an eye on my hand. I know it's hard to see the way that the filming happened and the editing broke down. It didn't quite work out exactly the way I wanted to, but my hand is still just visible enough in a specific moment here. So on this turn where I should not have been able to, I sang the Teeth with Rabbit, dealt the damage, and traded Genie with Dawn. That should not have been possible. I could still challenge the mine, so that's still, we can count that as being solid. But I would have instead quested, I think, with Merlin and quested with Genie, so I'd be at 7 right now. And then here, SouthPaw draws the fire, the cannons. He is going to take out the beast. There is a moment here where it does occur to me that he is top decking, so every card that he plays is coming off the top. I don't know why he's taking so long to make decisions here. Don't forget, we do have Card Soldier Spear, so he can't just attack into Merlin. That would be a trade. And whoever he hits with the 2 damage would get strength if it's not banished. So yeah, he takes out the beast here. There is this question of, does Pete swing or not? Now, assuming we couldn't do the Teeth, which we couldn't have, but we did, he would still have Dawn in play. Dawn would still be a 4/4 with no damage on it. It is possible Dawn could have challenged, but we're going to assume that he's questing here, because we want to see if SouthPaw would have just won the game straight up just from questing. So between Pete and Dawn, he would actually be going to 19 this turn, and he would have 2 characters that I'd have to deal with. So here it is. He's going to quest with this Pete. Again, taking a long time. He is making some decisions. He is calculating if he needs to challenge or not. The only thing he could take out without losing Pete would be Mulan. So if he was going to challenge, that's the thing to take out. It's always a little tricky because I move damage counters around. So hard to say. But there it is. He does finally quest. Again, he would be at 19. Let's just assume he's at 19. I'm at 7, right? Because I couldn't have sang or challenged last turn, so I would have quested. So it'd be 7 and 19 right now. Pay attention to my hand. Not yet, but it's coming up. There's an important key card that we will see. Now, here I would not have challenged Pete with Rabbit. I would have sang the Teeth, challenged the Dawn, and then Belle would have taken out Pete. Belle would have 3 damage here. That's important to note. Belle technically has 3 damage here. That's the only way I could have cleared the board. I would still have... There, right there, my hand. Do you see it? Do you see it? That's a fox. Keep that in the back of your mind. We have a fox in our hand. Alright, so again, SouthPaw is top decking. He is considering in this moment, he drew a Mr. Smee. Do I play Mr. Smee, or do I wait till I have a second character and I play 2 characters at once? Because my opponent moves damage around. That's what SouthPaw is thinking in this moment. And if I had the 3 damage on Belle, and he was at 19, if this was all information that was actually available on the table, 100% he would have held on to Mr. Smee. He would not have played it. He would have waited for 2 characters because it's statistically a lot more improbable for me to deal with it. Now, I did draw a Mother Gothel here, so I do have 3 damage. I do have the 3 damage on Belle. Don't forget that. I do have the 3 damage on Belle. But we play Mother Gothel that comes in with 3 damage. I play a second Belle. We're going to move the damage off of Mother Gothel to take out Smee. And quest here. This does allow me to draw another card. Again, 3 damage on our exerted Belle. This right here, I did not have a proper way to deal with the Daisy Duck. This is why the Fox matters. I have just enough that I can ink one more time, play the Fox, bounce my good Belle, replay the good Belle, move the 3 damage to Daisy, quest out, and then next turn I just quest for victory. So we would have got there.